Welcome to today's webinar, How Many Apps Do You Need for Work? Surprising Findings from Industry Workplace Survey. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You're welcome to submit questions at any time using the chat window on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. If we don't manage to answer all of your questions, someone will follow up with you shortly via email. We'll also make a recording of the webcast available to you within a couple of days. It's my pleasure to introduce you to today's speaker, David Lavenda, VP of Product Strategy at Harmony. David is a frequent contributor at Fast Company and is a founding member of the Reader Advisory Board at CMS Wire, where he writes a monthly column. David holds a master's degree in Science, Technology, and Society and is now pursuing a doctorate in Information Management, focusing his academic research on exploring the information overload experienced by mobile workers. David is also an international scholar for the Society for the History of Technology. David, please get us started.
Thanks, Susan, and good morning to everyone on the webinar. For those of you who followed last week's developments in the Microsoft Ignite conference, which is a huge conference in Orlando, during that keynote session given by Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, one of the things that he highlighted when talking about Microsoft's future directions was that technology needs to increase productivity and efficiency, but not in a way that degrades humanity. And this is a theme that has been picked up in the press and is, I think, experienced by a lot of digital workplace information workers, in that as we're starting to see more and more technology come into the workplace, people are starting to feel that things like automation are coming in, might be pushing them out, getting a grasp on all this technology and being able to use it is becoming more and more difficult. And the focus on productivity tends to be more on the technology tools rather than on helping people or putting people at the center and helping them get their tasks done. And we certainly agree with this view of the Microsoft CEO. In fact, we recognized this a while ago, and one of the things that we wanted to see, getting a lot of anecdotal information and feedback from our customers and prospects, was that they're being overloaded by too many apps, and they're finding it very difficult to focus on work because of too many information coming at them from too many directions. So what we did was we commissioned an independent survey to look at how many apps people are using, how impactful is this manifestation of using technology in the workplace. Is it just people complaining, or is there really something to this, that technology is impeding people's ability to get work and be productive? So what I'd like to do at this point is share some of those findings and to be able to look at some of those numbers and then see at the end, show some demonstrations of how we can get around that, specifically how Harmony is helping digital workplace information workers overcome the limitations of these technology developments of too much tech. So let's jump right in and look at some of the findings. And as we go through this, we're also going to give you, the audience, an opportunity to weigh in and compare the results of the audience with those of the survey. Survey that we ran polled. We got about 900 responses from a wide variety of different people and from countries all over the world. And it would be interesting to see how the audience compares with the findings of the survey. So one of the first questions we asked was, what are the top business apps that you're using? And not surprisingly, email was number one. I think one of the things that we consistently hear is that regardless of the number of apps that people are now working on, whether they're desktop apps, mobile apps, or web-based apps, is that email remains the number one place where people spend their work time and where a lot of the information, most of the information that they exchange resides and that transpires. Secondly, not surprisingly, a lot of information exchanged through web browsers, and this includes apps running in the web, calendaring applications, word processing tools like Microsoft Word, and a lot of work today, in fact, more and more work today in document storage tools, things like SharePoint, Dropbox, Box, and the like. So a lot of work on documents. We can see a lot of work in the sense of meetings, and certainly a lot of work in exchanging email messages. So before we look at the next finding, what I'd like to do is to take a poll and see how you compare with the findings that we got in the survey.
Please answer the question that you see now. How many workplace apps do you use on a normal day? 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, 20 or more. And we'll compare it to what our survey results gave us.
Okay, we're closing the polls, and here are the results. So looking at estimating how many workplace apps, we found that 73% of people say that they have between 5 and 9. About a quarter have between 10 and 14, and that's pretty much the range that we have. So interestingly enough, the poll of the 900 people that we had that responded to the survey, we got an average of 9.4 apps per day, which I think dovetails quite nicely with the number that we found here on the on today's survey with the audience. So that's, people are using an awful lot of apps. You think about that. It's just to get things done. You're continuously toggling between different things. And this information is, of course, is disconnected, and we'll see a bit more about that in just a moment. One of the interesting things was that 16% of the people that responded to the poll claimed that they were using more than 15 apps in an average day. Now, that's an amazing number of apps if you think about it, just to get work done. And you kind of wonder how people in this kind of environment really are able to focus on work when they're continuously, information is spread across so many different locations. One of the other things that we found interesting from the survey, we asked how many apps do you typically have open at any one time, and the response was about 3/4 of people have more than 5 apps open. So the idea is that it's not just, if you're using 9 apps a day, it's not that you're just using one app and then another app and a third app, and it's sequential and there's some sort of sense to your day, but rather that you're constantly having to move between different apps to get work done. So, we ask people, where is it that they spend
I'm sorry, how often do you check your email? Let's look at that and see how we compare to our survey results here.
Okay, looking at the poll results, we see that a little over a third check 5 or more times an hour, another third check about 2 to 4 times an hour, a little bit less once an hour, and then very few people about 2 to 7 times per day. If we look at how that compares to our survey of the 900 respondents, we found that about 50% of the people responding to the survey said that they checked email 5 or more times an hour. So you think about that, let's take the numbers together. You've got 5 apps open, you're using almost 10 apps a day, and you're checking email 5 times an hour. It's an awfully disruptive day. It's very difficult to be able to focus on something where you're constantly moving between lots of different apps, plus the fact that if you're checking email 5 times an hour, it means that you're spending an awful lot of time in email, and as corroborating the first finding that we had, which is that email is a place where people spend, it's a top app that they use during the workplace. Kind of one of the kind of outcomes of all these results is that when we ask people what it takes to complete typical business process, people over 60% of people said that they need too many apps to complete simple tasks. If you think about this makes perfect sense because apps are designed in such a way to allow you to complete simple tasks. So, for example, send an email message. A CRM application will let you update a sales record. A document processing tool will let you edit a document. But if you're thinking about when you come to work and you're thinking about a sales process or what's happening with the customer, you're really not just talking about updating a record. You're talking about understanding what's happening with the customer, you're understanding what documents have come in, what type of correspondence has transpired since yesterday, and therefore this business process spans many apps. And it's easy to see why people feel that when they're focusing on business processes, they need too many apps just to be able to complete simple tasks. And before we go to the next slide, we're going to ask one more poll question to compare the results of the findings from the audience with the findings from the survey.
How confident are you that you could find a piece of your work from 12 months ago within 5 minutes? Are you very confident? Quite confident? I wouldn't be able to do it in just 5 minutes. It would take me longer than 5 minutes, or I really don't know how long it would take me. Thank you. One second.
Just give a few more seconds for the polling to complete. All right, so we're going to share the results, and what we see is that and the audience feels quite confident that you'd be able to find work from 12 months ago within 5 minutes. That's what, 56%, over half. Whereas only 33% said either they wouldn't be able to find it in 5 minutes or they don't know. So our audience seems very confident in being able to find content, which is an interesting comparison with the results of our survey, where we saw that about 40% of people said that they wouldn't be able to do it in 5 minutes, and a portion of that said it would take much longer than 5 minutes to find it. So there seems to be certainly some problem of some scope, maybe smaller with the audience that we have on the phone rather than the survey, of being able to find information. And a lot of this comes down to how the information is stored, how it is categorized or classified in such a way that makes it both searchable and also findable by perhaps other people in the organization who might need access to your work as well. So I think one of the things that we find from the survey, regardless of the specific numbers, is that you're using almost 10 apps a day. 5 of them are open at least 5 of them are open at any given time. Is that the information tends to be very disconnected. So information contained in an email message really has no correspondence with information that might be in the CRM application. So if you're using Dynamics or Salesforce and you've got information about a customer, the name of the customer might be different than it is in an email message or in a document that's being shared either internally or with the customer or prospect. And this type of disconnected information spread across different apps creates data silos and makes it extremely difficult for people to focus on business processes. And a lot of the energy and cognitive expenditure goes into trying just to make sense of the information and piece it together. And we at Harmony have always believed that there's a new approach that's needed to being able to focus on what's important at work, and that is by bringing together information in a way that's meaningful. And that's what I'd like to show some tips and some quick demos of how we do this and how we help overcome some of the problems associated with this too many apps, too many applications, too many services, too much disconnected information, and help people focus on actually getting work done. We're going to show two quick demos. So one demo shows our traditional Harmony product, and really this Harmony strategy has always been really a two-phased approach. One is to bring all your information into a single place. We saw from the first survey result that the email client is the place where people spend their work time. Therefore, it makes a lot of sense to bring the information to the email client. People feel comfortable there. It's their comfort zone. It's where they spend their work time. They don't like to toggle to other places, so let's bring all the information to that place. So aggregation of information is clearly a necessary component of being able to solve the too much technology, too much disconnected information. The second part, the second phase of what Harmony is all about is organizing information so it makes sense. Aggregation in and of itself is not enough to solve a problem of this information overload or of too much disconnected data, because just piling all the information into a single screen when it's not organized doesn't help you make sense of it. It may reduce the number of toggling between apps, but it doesn't help you make sense of what it is of focusing in on that business process. So Harmony has always been about this, and one of the our traditional product, our classic product, is a sidebar that resides in email and brings all the Microsoft tools that you've already invested in. So things like SharePoint, Office 365, OneDrive, Yammer, Skype for Business, all into a single window where you already spend your work time, which is Outlook, and organizes the information in a way that makes sense. And I'm going to show you a demo of all these, a quick demo of all these products and how they fulfill this this vision or this strategy of bringing everything into one place and making sense of it all. Another new product that that Harmony has released is one which is the app for Microsoft Office. So as we show, the Harmony exists in Outlook, but now it also exists in the other places where you spend your work time. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and this works, of course, for Office 365 and on-premises, is being able to find all the information you need in a single window wherever you spend your work time. Email is the most popular. We also saw that document editing software is a similarly popular place where people spend their work time, and I will show you that also quite briefly. That works also for desktop and also for mobile. So I won't show the mobile today, but the user experience is exactly the same for the mobile as it is for the desktop. And also, I would like to spotlight the Harmony mobile products, which also provide the same type of access to the different information on mobile devices. This is a set of apps that just last week won the Microsoft 2017 Office App Award. This is following along in Harmony's tradition of being winners of the Microsoft App Awards across a number of years. So many of our apps have received this top app award, being recognized by Microsoft as providing a great deal of value to Microsoft Office and Microsoft SharePoint users and organizations. So with that, I'm just going to show a quick demo of what this looks like. And we're going to go to my screen. And what you see in front of you is your Outlook screen. And right here in the Outlook window, you'll see there's a sidebar. And this sidebar is the Harmony sidebar. What we can see here is a view of my SharePoint site. So if I can see all the SharePoint and OneDrive sites that I'm connected to, also now SharePoint, also Office 365 groups. So we also incorporate a lot of the capabilities, or bring together lots of different components of the Microsoft infrastructure in which you've already invested. And the basic concept of Harmony is quite simple. I can just, if I'm looking at an email here that has attachments, I can literally just select an attachment and drag it directly. No, it's not. Well, the demo demons, the demo demons have sunk in. Okay, let me just reset this for a moment, and we'll get this demo working in just a second. Okay, so again, we see the Harmony window on the side with all my view of my SharePoint sites, and I'm going to go to select one of my favorites, and I'll go right to one of the locations where I'm going to save some of these files. And okay, so again, I can just drag an attachment directly from an email message into the SharePoint location where I want to save it. And what we'll see is, because there's required metadata, one of the things that Harmony does is automates the prompting for metadata, so that not only is it easy to store documents within SharePoint, but it's also easy to classify them. And classification is critical, particularly for compliance and governance initiatives, where you need to be able to find documents afterwards. So one of the things we saw before, being able to find information later on that you've stored, not only your own information, but information that colleagues may have stored. So you may be able to find, our survey found that most of the people on the webinar feel confident that they could find information. The question is, how confident are they could find information that others have stored related to a joint project, for example, or a joint account that you're working on together. So Harmony prompts the users to make it really simple to specify metadata, and I can just click, for example, on project. I'm prompted for all the possible values that I can add here, and once that's done, I can save the document directly in SharePoint. It gets checked in, all the metadata associated with it. So of course I can search for it and find it later on, making it really simple. People not having to know where that was actually stored in order to be able to find it. But today, more and more, it's not only documents that are important. Email messages in and of themselves are largely documents of record. So for example, if somebody sends me a proposal about a project that they want to do for me, and they say, this is how much I'm going to charge per hour, and these are how many hours the project is going to take, and I say, yes, I accept your terms, and we just exchange email messages, there's absolutely no difference between that exchange and a Word document that might be an attachment that contains the same information. So it makes no sense to store a proposal and a response that's a document attachment in SharePoint, or the email message that says the same information to store that in an Exchange server to be locked in my own inbox, not accessible to anyone else, not available for audits, not available to fulfill compliance requirements. So Harmony makes it really simple just to be able to drag and drop email messages into SharePoint exactly the same way that we do for documents. And also you'll see that the same level of prompting for metadata is supplied. In fact, we capture the metadata in such a way that we take all the header information from the email automatically, and we would prompt for information that's missing for required metadata. One of the things that we also do, which is quite new, and this leads into where we're headed, and I'll show you this in some of our future next generation products, is we also use artificial intelligence in the form of natural language processing to do content analysis on the content of the email itself, extract interesting topics. So you'll see in this email message, Harmony was able to extract 2 interesting topics and automatically associate that with SharePoint metadata. And this is a fantastic new capability, because when you want to be able to find information, or you want to be compliant with governance or regulatory compliance requirements, you really need to classify and categorize the emails and the documents as accurately as possible. And using natural language processing capabilities to automatically associate content values with metadata is a fantastic new development, something brand new that we're just rolling out and making available to the public. So this is really something extraordinary, and it's available from Harmony today. One other thing that also helps make it easy to capture and classify information correctly is sometimes you're working in an environment where you have multiple people working, say, on a joint account. So you might be a professional services organization or a government agency where emails come into a group, and in order to be able to track those emails and make sure that somebody doesn't drop the ball, that they're not only handled, but there's also a record of how they were handled, is sometimes very difficult, because maybe 10 people will get the copy of the email. It's not quite clear who handled it unless you do an awful lot of distribution lists going back and forth, and it becomes quite complicated and very sloppy, very difficult for compliance requirements. So one of the things that Harmony has introduced is the ability to automate the capture of email messages. And I'll demonstrate that quickly using Outlook rules and associating Outlook rules with SharePoint folders. I can, for example, I'll show you how this works. I'll just send myself an email message quickly. In this case, what I'm looking at is I'm using the subject. I just created an Outlook rule that's looking for a particular subject. In this case, the subject would be maybe the account name. It could be the name of a project. It could be the name of a particular type of request from a company's support department, or from a local government, a city clerk asking for a particular type of information. And I will send this email message, and what we'll see here very quickly is we'll look at the left side of the screen. You'll see that there's right here, there's one of the emails has been, I created a rule that moves emails that contain that header, that subject line, into a folder called Ravenwood HQ. And that information goes into an email box, and then what happens is it takes a few seconds, and that information immediately will get transferred, and we'll see this in just a few moments. It will get transferred into the email, into the SharePoint folder right here, and available. So in this case, no hands needed. Nobody needs to handle it. Some organizations find this extremely helpful to be able to automate the transfer of email messages directly into SharePoint without having human intervention. And of course, there's the ability to search. So I can right here in the Harmony window, I can search. So I can search for things that say Ravenwood, and Harmony employs the SharePoint search capabilities in order to surface the information related to that particular account. One of the things I talked about before was that the problem associated with too many places to go for information is that the information is disconnected. So we see here that we've very nicely connected email with SharePoint. We also included here the ability to connect email with associate the Skype for Business integration. So let me just go to a different folder here. You can see, so it'll just be easier to demonstrate. You see I've got a lot of information here, and we also have presence awareness over here, so that I can literally see who has last modified a document or who created a document, and then right mouse click and generate an instant message or call or video call, communicate with that person in the context of the document that I'm looking at or interested in, or an email that I might be interested in, without having to then go toggle to another application, search for that person, enter that information. These disruptions and interruptions we know create a lot of cognitive dissonance in terms of trying to focus on what's important, and tying these things together is really important in order to helping people focus and mitigate that the impact of the survey content that we saw, which is that people are using a lot of apps and having to toggle between them. So this is what we call the strategy. We say you stay in email, one window, no pain, focusing on work, bringing together a lot of the different applications that make it easy for you to focus. Now, one of the new things, as I showed just recently previously in the slide, was that we have now included the ability to include our Harmony for Office app, which now brings the same type of connectivity between SharePoint and OneDrive and Groups directly into not only the email window, but the second most popular place where people spend their work time, and that's document management, document editing products like Microsoft Word. So we've included this in Microsoft Word. I can now save information, save this document directly into SharePoint, navigating the same way that I did in the Harmony sidebar within Outlook, but now doing it directly within within Word. By the way, I can also do this going back to our slide here. You see there's a button at the top that says Save to SharePoint. That will actually launch the same app within the PowerPoint window. It also works for Excel. Yeah, it looks the same on the mobile device. This app is using the new Office UI fabric that Microsoft promoted last week. In fact, we're one of the first apps in the market to take advantage of Microsoft's next generation development platform for this. And you can see that here that these apps actually won last year's Office App Award. These two that I just showed you here, the SharePoint Online Client and the Harmony for Office app, these are available directly in the Microsoft store itself, in the App Source store from Microsoft. So highly regarded products by Microsoft themselves, bringing a lot of value in that we connect the different components that you've already invested heavily in to get people to be able to fulfill the business needs, which are capturing and classifying information, both emails and documents, correctly so that you can find them later on for compliance, governance, account management, case management, lots of different needs to be able to not only store information but also be able to find it in a timely manner. So that's just a quick short demo of the Harmony product. We'd like to just talk a little bit about some of the new things that we're doing to taking this to the next level, and that is not only to connect information together in the way that we saw previously, bringing SharePoint and other Microsoft tools directly to email, but also organizing that information in the way that your brain works. People think in terms of topics. When you get up in the morning, you think about a customer, you think about a sales opportunity, you think about a project, a service, some sort of a product perhaps. You don't think about a Salesforce record. You don't think about an RFP document. You don't think about a contract or a proposal. And this is the next thing that Harmony is taking on, is this ability to bring information together from disconnected sources in a way that makes it easy to digest by topics. So let's take just a quick look at how this works. I actually showed this briefly in that Harmony demo, where we automatically took topics out of email messages and associated that with SharePoint metadata. But we're now taking that to the next stage, and that is by connecting all your cloud services. Again, the two-phase process that Harmony has always been famous for, bringing all the information to a single place, the email client, but now not only organizing the information in a very orderly fashion, but also organizing it by topics the way the brain works. And this is actually built on top of and augments the Microsoft graph that Microsoft somewhat promoted last week in the Ignite conference. This ability to make sense of what people are doing, how people are connected in an organization, to take this information which also uses some forms of artificial intelligence, but to take it to the next level and extend this not only to people and artifacts like documents, but also to connect them by topics, and lastly, not only to work within the Microsoft ecosystem, but also to extend this out to other products that go beyond the Microsoft ecosystem. So I'm not going to, we call this topic computing. We think it's the next level, and the industry is starting to catch on that this is the next level of how people interact with computers. Instead of thinking in terms of apps or that app economy where you've got 5 apps or 10 apps and you're toggling between them, it's about bringing all those apps together by topic, allowing you to focus on the topic and not have to worry about where the information is coming from or how to update that information. And that's what I'd like to show you right now, very quickly, how this works in practice today. So going back to our Outlook window, in the Harmony product, there's a tab here called Collage. When I select an email message, what we'll see right here is that Collage will now run the natural language processing on the email message, both on the structured data that comprises the headers, so the things like the subject, the to, the from, and so on, but also does content analysis on the contents of the email message. And using NLP, the natural language processing, will extract interesting topics related to that particular email message. So we found 4 topics related to this email message: a customer name, and then several other things that were mentioned. What we see down below is that Collage will now go and extract from things like other email messages, SharePoint documents, and other applications. So we can see, let's take a look at another email message here. We'll see some other applications that also, again, here we see the topics that were extracted from email message. Here we see some information that was extracted now that was found related in a Zendesk application. So I'm looking at an email that I received from a customer, and I see 3 topics related to that email. Let me just focus on one of the topics for a moment. So I'm looking at just what's happening with that customer. This is the topic focus. So everything now that appears in the Collage window is a view of what is happening with that customer at the moment. And I see there's some email messages, there's some information from Zendesk, there's some SharePoint documents that also were found here. And this information is organized in a way where the most important updates appear at the top, and you see this here in the important updates. The way Collage does this uses the Microsoft graph, things like affinity to how close the people who are mentioned in these updates are to me, plus things like what's trending around me. These are other pieces of information that come from the Microsoft graph, in addition to lots of other types of metrics that Collage takes and scores, both using within the Microsoft ecosystem, and as we can see here from the Zendesk example, also extends beyond the Microsoft ecosystem. So now bringing together all the different apps and services that you have, all related to this particular customer. So I'm looking at this customer, this Hilton example. All the information was located right here in one window. I don't have to navigate away to Zendesk. I don't have to navigate away to SharePoint looking for this information manually. In many cases, I wouldn't even know what to look for because I don't even know that this exists, and just surfaces it right away. So what I can do here is, of course, these are not just simply notifications, because being notified of something wouldn't necessarily help me solve any problem that I have. These are fully actionable, so I can literally just click on a button and launch this document in context within, in this case, Office 365, going directly to SharePoint Online and launching it directly in Outlook Online. I can make edits to that document and then literally close the window and go right back to where I was before, eliminating the need to toggle between all those different apps. So then the survey found that working with too many apps to complete a business process, Collage solves that problem by bringing all the apps into one window and organizing the information by what's most relevant to me at the moment. Because what I'm looking at is this email. This is what's interested me at the moment, and I'm able to focus on this email and what's related to it directly in the side window here. This works for right now, where we work with these services: SharePoint, Outlook, Dynamics 365, Salesforce, Yammer, and Zendesk, bringing together all the information in one window again and organizing it so it makes sense without having to search for it. So a very quick example of the new Collage offering from Harmony, which is also available today. So maybe just to wrap up, I know we're kind of running short in a few minutes, just a couple things about some of the accolades that Harmony has received. As I mentioned, Harmony just received the Best Office App Award for mobile device, for mobile app in 2017, which adds to our previous awards that we received last year. We've received several awards for Collage and for both Harmony app for Office as well. You see some of the other awards from and recognition that Harmony has received from research organizations like Gartner and 451 Research, as well as winning the KM World 100 companies. How many customers are really happy with the products that they've received from us? There's a really great article that appeared in the Wall Street Journal. The CIO of Swiss Re, Dr. Rainer Baumann, was featured in the CIO Journal in last month, talking about Swiss Re and their initiative to use artificial intelligence to help workers deal with the complexity of a very complex world that they're involved in, which is insurance, and relying upon Harmony to help them organize the information so people can focus on what's important rather than focusing on searching and trying to analyze data that's just disconnected from many different sources. So with that, I'd like to wrap up and turn it back over to Susan for questions and for a final poll question.
So while you answer the poll question, if you're using Harmony and if you would be interested in having an enterprise evaluation where you will see all of these features, let's look at some of the questions that have come in. Let's see here. So somebody is asking, do we plan the Collage integration with any other CRMs besides Salesforce, David?
Yeah, so today we have Salesforce. We also have Dynamics 365, which is a very robust offering together. Again, within the Microsoft world, Dynamics is not as well integrated as you might think, together with some of the other tools like Outlook and SharePoint, and we bring that already to the table. We do have plans to include other CRM and other systems. Basically, the priority is being driven by customer requests.
Thank you. And as a follow-up for that, can you please let us know what apps are we currently available to get in the Harmony window? What apps can we get right now in Collage?
Okay, so the apps you get with Collage, basically what Collage does is it aggregates the services that you already own. So when you purchase Harmony, when you purchase Collage, you get the ability to connect the services that we support together. So we do not supply any apps for either Harmony or Collage, but what we do is enable you to leverage the significant investment you've already made in your Microsoft and other services to be able to get the value out of them by connecting them in a meaningful way in a single window.
Thank you. Is the Word add-in and the Excel and the PowerPoint that you showed, is that included as part of the same license, or is that an extra cost?
Yeah, that's included as part of our product today. We have one license for all the Harmony apps and services. So when you license the Harmony product, you have the ability to use any and all of the Harmony products. It's a per user license basis.
You talked about the survey. Where can I see the results from the survey? Other questions?
Okay, so you will receive. You can see there's a. To show what the page looks like here on the Harmony website. There is a way to download the survey results. You will receive this link in an email as a follow-up to this webinar, and you'll just be able to access it from there. Is a full report that goes into depth of not only the results, but also an analysis of those results.
Great. Thank you, David, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you all for joining us today. As David just said, you'll receive an email with a link to view the webinar in a couple of days, including a link to get to this report. And we look forward to meeting you again at our next webinar. Thanks.